Hey there YouTube, it's me, Broken Terrain, and in this video I'm going to show you how I made this cute, quaint little village house. Or is it a cafe? Or a tavern? It's all kinds of things, and I'm going to show you the couple little details and tricks that I've done to make this not just a house, but a very modular piece of terrain. With 3 or 4 of these, you could easily replicate a street front or a quaint village. So let's get to it after this drop. I thought I'd start this video off by showing you the first and only house I've done previous. This was before I started doing videos. So this is my benchmark, and I want to improve. So here's the new one. I'm really proud of it, and I did several features on it that allow this building to be way more modular than my first, and I can't wait to share them with you. But first things first, I'm going to cut my dollar store ready board foam. I'm going to cut that in 2-inch strips. This is going to be the majority of the walls. And then I'm going to cut squares and rectangles of foam. It doesn't matter the size really, but this does determine the sizes of your floor. Well, I guess it does matter then. I use my texture roller over some of those 2-inch strips, and it creates a wonderful stone texture. If you haven't seen that video, I'm going to link it here. I recommend you check it out and build one for yourself. It's kind of cool having a personal signature texture. I measure the walls to the piece I'm going to use for the base, and then I just kind of mark out some basic shapes where I want the door. And my first very important decision to make this piece modular, I'm going to put in a very large bay window here at the front. Make sure you keep a mini on hand for scale, just to make sure. And then I'm going to hot glue those panels in place. When I started this project, I didn't plan on making the floors playable, but then I kind of flipped it upside down and I saw how I could kind of add playable floors fairly easy with the magnets I love so much, and so now it's fully playable. I'm going to use my 1/2-inch XPS foam. Get this from Home Depot or Lowe's. Its color may vary depending on what brand, but it's the same foam. I cut out the corner, and then I do some stonework shape every 1/4 inch. Run your knife through, then run your pen through. And this is going to hide those really bad corners with that ready store foam board. And of course that wasn't enough. I wanted a little decoration, so every other brick I cut a little short, textured with tin foil, and hot glued into place. And a little tip from me to you, that was the last one I did like that. The rest of them, I cut the corner out, glue them in place, and then I do all the stonework. It made everything a whole lot easier and way more sturdy, so I recommend doing it that way. This project was to be my base building for 4 or 5 more to create a city or village. So I made a template for the door, sketched out a door, carved out the inner part, leaving a door frame or jamb, and then went in and cut and textured with X-Acto pen. And then I placed the door against the wall, sketched an outline, then cut that out and this way I could recess the door past the edge a bit. I liked the look. Hot glue, and put the door in place. And now I'm going to get to work on this large bay window. A very important feature to call this house modular. This bay window could be a simple bay window. Lots of houses have them. No big deal. It works. However, you could also call this a shop window. Place little bottles in the window, maybe little daggers or swords. Now, suddenly, it's an item shop where you can view product inside the window. Do you see what I'm getting at, YouTube? It's these very small design decisions that allow me to call this building modular. And as I get to others, I'll point those out. I traced and cut the hole out for the bay window and recessed it back into the foam, and I'm really digging it. Now I wanted a second floor that was a little larger than the first. I love that look on little medieval houses and cottages, and I wanted to replicate that. I take a piece of my 1/2 inch XPS foam, line it up with the first floor, and measure things out. But this thing's a little crooked, YouTube. I was not really worried about measurements. I was just having a grand old time making this little house. As long as it looks good and feels good to you, just go with it. Don't worry about it. I traced some side beams out, and then I got the great idea. I wanted these long edges to recess a bit, like the logs were sticking out. I thought, man, that was a really cool look. So I just, took about 1/8 of the inch off the edges, carved in a little bit, broke those edges so it looked like that hewn lumber. Then you take your pen and you draw that wood grain across them. And I was really liking the way everything was coming out. Then on those ends you do that circled pattern. And it ends up looking really good, like big strong logs holding up that second floor. Then it was time to lay out some texture for the second floor because I had to do more work for myself and make everything playable. So first I did 1/4 inch boards running all the way across, and then every other board at 1 inch. This creates a very cool and very usable grid for your woodwork. It's been my go-to for a little while. I highly recommend it. Looks real sharp. Then you do your wood grain using their pen. Check for fit. Looking good. And I'm going to glue this down to the roof of my first floor. Now to finish off this log look, I'm carving these up like the extensions of the log from the other side, and I glue these down on the corner, and the effect is dynamite. Such a simple little trick to get this really cool log look. Once again, to sell it, do that circle knotted texture that you see at the end of big hand-hewn logs. Once done, grab up some foam, mark out where you want your walls to sit, and remember your walls are going to be glued at the edges and have their own thickness, so keep that in mind when you make your measurements. Trim everything out, and I've got my 2-inch walls, but now I need the 2-inch with the roof peak, and I wanted a nice round peak. So I drew one side, cut it, used it to trace the other, and then with my fully cut piece, once again, I made a template of it. Here we go. And this way I can keep this piece for my future houses, and even though they all won't be the same size, I'll have a roof peak that I can look at and mimic when I'm making the other buildings. Now just pull one side of the paper off of your ready board and texture with tin foil. That's my go-to for the plaster effect. I think it works really well. I've seen some people actually lay down plaster. More power to you if you want to do that, but I think you're overthinking it. Quick roll with some tin foil and then some proper dry brushing and washes gives you just a fantastic looking plaster texture. Glue all the sides to your second floor piece. More corner pieces. These are so much easier than the stonework. Cut that corner, glue in place, and then you're just going to run your pen down and give them that wood texture. And then it's all kinds of trim board. I use 1/4-inch strips of the ready board, and I just place them all over the place. Of course I do. I put them in all the fairly standard medieval home areas, along the roof line, up the middle, across the top, and I'll get to a little diagonal brace there in the top of the eave. Pretty classic stuff. I'm not breaking too many rules here. At this point I wanted to get the magnets done. I glued the first magnet in place on the corner, and then lining the second up with the other magnet on top, I push down on the corners and it leaves this small circle imprint. Can you see it there? Now I know exactly where I need to cut. I'll cut those small circles out, hollow it out enough, hot glue in. I'm going to place the magnet, and then I've been doing this new trick where I keep the cap of the circle I cut out and then glue the cap back down to hide the magnet. So far it's been working very well. And now that the second floor is made, it needs its windows. Lots and lots of windows. Here's some more 1/4-inch strips of ready foam board, and this small cardboard square is my stencil for the windows. I'm going to hold on to that when this project's done, just like my door and my roof stencil, and these are going to help me make a whole town or village of houses that all look very similar. Once the frame is done, I take some matchstick. Again, use that cardboard template to get a feel for what size I need for at least that first cross piece, and then I cut small side pieces out, measuring to the actual piece with a pair of tweezers and a very careful application of hot glue. I get them into place. These windows were a lot of work, and very time-consuming part of the project. Once complete, you'll go over the foam with a pen and put in your wood grain, and then make a ton more. What do you think? Look good? I'm going to trace and cut and recess them just like I did the first floor. It just looks better, particularly when contrasted with the support beams that are sticking a full length out or the full thickness out. It's easy enough to run your hot glue around the edges and secure those windows in place. Looking good. I use that template to cut a few more ribs for my roof, and then I use some thin chipboard and hot glue it down into place. Easy enough to trim off the excess, and I come in a little bit with my trim in an attempt to hide the chipboard from view when I go to do the shingles. So ask any terrain crafter who's done a house, and I'm guessing the worst part about it for them was shingles. And if you have a Proxxon hot wire cutter, I am going to show you my technique for ripping out a ton of shingles really fast that look really good. I mean, they're not perfect. And if I knew how to run my Proxxon a little better, maybe they would be closer to perfect, but so here's my technique. I take a strip of 1/2-inch XPS foam. I do 1/4-inch marks all the way down it, and a border line to stop at the at that border for the shingle strip. And then I just carefully Proxxon each line of the 1/4-inch. And then you go back and you cut the little tops off at different lengths and angles to create your different looking shingle shapes. Don't dig in too far, but they end up looking really good. Then you fix your shield to a thickness as thin as you want those shingles to be, and then you rip one out. Here it is. It looks like they kind of stuck together, but you just quickly break them apart and you see you've got an entire strip of individual shingles, and then you just keep ripping this thing over and over again, and it's real easy to get a massive pile of shingles. I had all the shingles I needed and then some, a ton of extra. Super excited, highly recommend that method. If you don't have a Proxxon, I'm sorry. You'll have to do it the old-fashioned way, but if you do have a Proxxon, you can get a ton of really good shingles really fast. And here's a little time lapse of me throwing them in place. One more tip, draw those lines, those parallel lines at different spots in your roof all the way up. And this is going to allow you to keep those shingles nice and straight the whole length of your roof. Nothing too crazy here. I ripped some more thin XPS foam. No special shape. I think they're 3/4 by 1/2-inch. Hot glue them lengthwise. Have them step over each other It creates a nice looking peak on your roof. Finishes it off real nice. Time for the foundation. I traced out the bottom floor on my chipboard, and then I started using little bricks and just bricking away. It's a lot of fun. YouTube, I love laying brick. Lots of little foam brick. I hope you like watching. I'll tell you this though, if you really want to save time, you're going to get a similar effect by just taking a sheet of 1/2 inch XPS foam, trimming it to size, and then texturing on it, digging in with the knife, running your pen over the lines to exaggerate the grout lines in the brick. It would have saved me a ton of time and a ton of my pre-cut bricks. That being said, I had a blast. I love doing this. And so I bricked quite a bit in this project. First I do the foundation, and then I wanted to have a fun diagonal pattern on the inside. I've got some footage of that too. Once the border was done, I wanted to add a little weight to the base, so a couple of fender washers. Lay some dollar store foam down as the first layer, and then the second layer I'm going to lay some more brick, and this is that diagonal pattern that I really like. It really turned out good. Once finished, I added a little bit to where the doorway would be. Nice little step. I also put the magnets in. I have the first floor magnetized to the foundation. Then I made some little pillars to handle that overhang. And that overhang is important later. Of course, I can't forget the fireplace. I did in my first house, and it still bothers me. Maybe one day I'll go back and retro in a fireplace. But until then, I'll just move forward and make sure this place has a fireplace worthy of mention. Next, I lay down some brick on the patio. This bricked area is another feature that allows this terrain piece to become modular, and I'll explain a little later. Fairly simple. I cut the bricks in thirds and laid them down. And finally, I want to talk about the most important feature that makes this modular. I buried a magnet in the corner of this beam near this door. And with this magnet, I'm going to create a point where I can attach many different signs. I'm going to put another magnet down on a piece of chip with some hot glue. I'm going to glue the matchstick to the end of the magnet, and then I'm going to run the hot glue and kind of encase the magnet to the end of the stick and with the piece of chip. This is just going to secure everything in place and create a small little magnetic matchstick piece that pops on and off. And if you aren't following me yet, that's okay. I'm going to cut a small rectangle or a square of the ready board foam, remove the paper on both sides, hit it with a small brass wire brush for a wooden texture, and then using a thin chip, I draw and cut out small shapes. The one on the video here is a potion bottle, and this way I could glue this little potion bottle on both sides of the sign, And it's going to indicate that this building here sells potions. Potion shop. I find the little jewelry eyelets I like to use, cut them to size a little more appropriate, jam them into the top. A little bit of hot glue will hold them, not hot glue, my apologies, some super glue will hold it into place. Be sure how you do the eyelets so that the sign swings properly. Make sure they're both lined up. Take another eyelet. I open it up with the tweezer, put it through the other, pinch it shut again with the tweezer, and now it's kind of locked into place. I'm going to do that with both. Hold it up and super glue them onto the matchstick. I've done several, which I'll show you in just a bit later on. But now let's take a look at this whole house. We're done. I didn't plan on it being fully playable, but it ended up being fully playable. You can see I've carved a stairs square there in the back, and I've got a stair I think I might add to this lower level. You've got the little patio. You could turn this little thing into a cafe, put some tables out back, or just have a really cool meeting place for shady things to go down. You've got your bay window / item window or shop window, which is another modular piece. And now we have our last and final modular bit, the signs. A turkey leg for a cafe or a restaurant, even a tavern. A sword and shield. Could they be selling arms and armor inside? Maybe the Sword and Board Tavern. And last but not least, that potion bottle. Now we've got a potion shop where our adventurers can go to restock and resupply. So now you've seen my simple tricks to make this home or house a modular possible item shop or tavern. I want to thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like. If you want to subscribe, I'd love it, and you'll get notifications for all my new videos. And until next time, YouTube, like each other, love each other, and craft on.